parties. We had the recession keg party when the recession happened. And then 2 years later, it still never ended in Canada, and we had the end of the recession keg party. So,
hey everyone, welcome to another episode of I Know This Guy, the podcast where we dive deep into the lives of some of the most interesting people I know. Before we get started, please like and subscribe to I Know This Guy wherever you get your podcasts. By the way, my kids want me to say something about ringing a bell. What the hell's a bell? So you're really an underachiever.
well, I don't know about that. It's interesting you say that, though. It's not been an all straight up, situation. I've had that. It's been a roller coaster. There's been times when you do so incredibly well, and then fast forward a year or two later, and it's just like you've lost almost everything, and then you're back up again 2 years later, and you're back down again. It's just been a phenomenal ride over the last 18 to 20 years.
So, Colin, how do you find yourself dealing with that? I mean, I think for most people that, they do like stability or like some sense of what's coming next. But if you get hit that hard, what kind of pushes you forward to take that leap of faith and try again?
I think, ultimately it's my passion, right? And my passion has been trying to build technology that can help people function better and work better in society and live better. And the way that technology can influence the world and make those changes is very exciting for me. So I love being part of that. I love being part of that revolution, part of the early internet revolution. When we went into high speed, we had the big change of high speed coming on and being part of that. And then we went into social media and we went into mobility, and all those changes, enabled huge amounts of opportunities for entrepreneurs and anyone who wanted to get in to be part of that. But it's also a very exciting thing to be involved in. And I think that, when you fail at certain things, focusing on those things that you love the most and being part of that and just sticking with it, even through the .com crash, when quite frankly, that was probably one of my hardest times. After I sold my company, and the shares had collapsed in value because I was locked up, it was really hard for me to get over that. But what I did is really think about, what do I truly love about what I started with my first company that virtually I lost in this transaction after 10 years? And what am I going to do going forward right now to build something new and different, and obviously make money along the way as well? And that's where the genesis of the next idea had come from.
I remember Tucows. I mean, that was something that I always used. It was for freeware and for shareware back at the time. And I was a geek and I was always on Tucows. And I remember I joined this association called YEO. And, it was the first meeting, and all of a sudden these three guys walk in, and I didn't know, who the guys were. And anyways, we were introduced, and it was the guys from Tucows, and it was like, oh my God, these are rock stars. and there you were. I was a groupie.
I mean, it was a great website. Tucows originally was the ultimate collection of windsock software, which is totally geeky. And that actually was the original name. We changed it to Tucows. People would understand that a little better. And then we had a famous 5-cow rating. We rated software on the internet. We became one of the top 100 websites on the internet, but based on PC Magazine's list of internet companies during the 90s. We quickly saw traffic explode at Tucows. And in fact, so much so that it was costing us, like, we were losing a lot of money, because back in the 90s, believe it or not, Hayden, you'd pay for internet, and it would cost you money to use the computer, and internet could be very expensive. And so what we did is actually we created a new system called mirror sites, and we had internet service providers all over the globe put on servers at their local site, and we sent them copies of our data, and we disseminated that on a daily basis. Well, we did that to save money, but little did we know what that would do would be make that a global brand. And it became one of the largest software download sites on the internet in the 90s.
I remember that. If you had it was a 1 cow rating. I mean, you were dead. It went up to 5 cows, right?
That's correct.
That's right. I remember.
And then we had a big fight with Gateway Computers. I don't know if you remember that one, where Gateway claimed they had trademarked the cow spots. And so we posted that on our front site, and people started boycotting Gateway Computers. I don't remember Gateway, but it was.
Oh, I remember them. Yeah.
And then they eventually backed down and said, okay, no, you can use the cow spots on your site as well. Wow.
Who knew cows could be ammunition?
Yeah, who knows?
Oh, that's great. There's all this. I mean, everything sounds great, Col. You've got these huge hosting, and when you're talking about hosting, you're not talking about a little hosting company here and there. You were the hosting company for huge corporations, like you were talking about, huge telcos. You were the brand behind the brand, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. So companies like Bell Canada, AT&T, Earthlink, Vodafone, British Telecom, the South American telecoms we had as well. All of those companies sold or continue to sell hosting and email services, and Hostopia became the leading provider of those services, basically globally, for telecom. So think about if you buy a website or you buy business email from one of those companies, Hostopia was the leader in that space.
It seems like you've kind of had your pulse on what's happening during these changes, and with Tucows or Hostopia, kind of rode that wave. Do you feel like you have a certain ability to sense when something's kind of bubbling or rising, or is it more just, I imagine there's a lot of luck in it, but do you feel like you have that sensibility to kind of test the air?
Yeah, and so much so, actually, I'm not going to brag here, but I am, but so much so in that I've actually sort of started to document it and try to understand the effects that occur in the marketplace. There's technology shifts in the marketplace, and if you look at some of the early companies I was involved with, like Internet Direct, which is an ISP, an internet service provider, that company obviously took advantage of people getting on the internet, and primarily through dial-up internet. That's when people use phone lines to connect. And then we saw the advent of broadband internet, and Hostopia, the way we succeeded in that market was providing software as a service, online software. They actually called it something different in the early 2000s. It was called application service provider. We often change the name, but it really today is known as cloud computing. We were one of the first in our space to provide those services, which could not have occurred unless you had broadband. So broadband itself is actually a paradigm shift, and it unleashed a whole set of new opportunities. And then if you fast forward, another 10 years, you've got the advent of social media with Facebook, and now you're seeing TikTok and so many other of these social media companies just rise up, and people interacting with those companies. You saw the advent of broadband through mobile and mobile-friendly websites, and how applications, all those applications you download on your phone, how that created a whole set of opportunities in the marketplace. There are also regulatory changes and shifts that occur in the marketplace. And anyone who's interested in starting a business, should always be keeping their eyes open, on whether there's a technology shift or a regulatory shift. As an example of that, in 2012, the ICANN, which is the Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers, it's a long one, but they're the ones who govern the internet, including the domain name space, which includes .com. In 2012, they opened up the domain name space to allow for new domain extensions. So I saw that coming, and very excited about those changes, right? I really do like surfing when it comes to, the waves of technology changes, or in this case, it was actually a regulatory change. So I applied for a domain extension called .club. And .club, it's a great domain, and that it's all about people coming together and sharing their passions together. And I thought that was just like one of the best domain extensions you could have on the internet. So I applied for that extension. We went through an extensive auction process, took about 2 years, and we finally won the domain extension. But you can see the opportunity that for me there was actually based on a regulatory change. Now it's more interesting. I'm looking at some of my more recent investments in companies that I've invested in, companies like meowingtons.com, which is a cat product site, and paw.com, which is a dog product site. And these companies, I call them micro brands. And we're beginning to see the rise of micro brands in society. So we're literally talking about offering products that compete, or product in really a store that competes with Amazon. Now, who's going to compete with Amazon? Come on, are you kidding me? You think we can really do that? Well, I'm going to say right now you can. And the reason why we can is because of Amazon. Amazon paved that path to make it easy for customers to buy online and feel comfortable with buying products online. And now customers are beginning to realize that they want a deeper relationship with the people who provide those products and build those products. And we're seeing traditional retailers go under, go bust. They're going away. Yet people still want to buy and connect and have some form of relationship with those companies. And I can tell you, those that sign up to the mailing lists for these micro brands, they get better deals than what you'll get if you buy on Amazon or you're to buy through a third party, because they're not paying the 30% commission or whatever the third party charges. They're not paying that commission. So end users get lower prices and they get better services and a better variety. And the company itself makes more money and invests that money back into the products and services. So you have a positive cycle. So, I'm here to call that, I think the next paradigm shift, or the paradigm shift that's occurring in our society today on the internet, is the rise of micro brands, and the company that's leading that is Shopify. I think they've really done a phenomenal job, and they're taking on Amazon in a way we've never seen before, because it's never been easier to launch your own brand or micro brand. And with the advent of the new domain extensions, and we'll talk a little bit of that later, you can also put a great domain name and brand up there as well.
There's two things. It's a 1-2 punch. Like right now, like during the time of this podcast, the whole COVID thing is happening. So you've got a lot more people buying online that would never have bought before, but they're at home and they're buying. That's number one. The second thing is the way that, and I hope I don't get in trouble for this, but it's the way that Amazon treats its sellers. They don't care about their sellers. I've seen so many sellers that have done nothing wrong get suspended, put time and money into a product, and then what happens is Amazon. It happened today with one of my clients, that he did nothing wrong. And he just got his listing 100% gone. No email, no nothing. It forces people to go online and try to go off Amazon. So I think you're nailing it. And I think you're going to see a huge surge in the micro brands. Touching on .club, I want to go back and, talk about it, because, everybody says .com. .com is the only thing you can do. You want to go a little bit further on that? Like, why are you able to take on a .com or any of these other TLDs? And what is it with a club?
Yeah, why is .org able to take on .com? When my wife and I bought a school in Fort Lauderdale 10 years ago, we actually chose to get a .org over a .com because it meant something different. And I think that's a key component to any new domain extension. I'm not a big fan of the .com wannabes, those who are similar to .com, like a .net or a .co. I have to, admit I'm not, because I feel like, in those cases, well, why didn't you get a .com? You just couldn't afford it. I am a big fan of names that have meaning and that are relevant. And I'm a fan for a couple of reasons. One is they're very memorable. You can understand them very easily. Soap.club, for example, a company you have. The second thing is if you type in soap space club on Google, Google does give you, I know in the case Soap Club, I checked this morning, you actually have the top ranking on Google for that term. And if you get a name like a wine club or a coffee club or a cigar club, I mean, you can actually really get some very good Google juice that can really help your business. And the third thing is that .com has over 120 million names registered. So in many cases, you're looking at a 3-word and sometimes a 3-word spelled incorrectly. You're not looking at names that are very easy for Google to index on the internet because those names are already taken. Popular keywords, key phrases, key searches, those names are already taken on the internet by other companies. And if they're not, and they're for sale by domain investors, they tend to be very expensive. So this is a much more affordable alternative. You can buy a .club, for instance, at probably at 1 to 2% of the value of a .com. Now, as time goes by and .club becomes more popular in the marketplace, you'll see the prices of those domains rise. And then the last point is just there isn't a lot of .coms left. I mean, I had 120 million registered. It's just very hard to find it. So, I think that's the difference between. Now, that being said, .com is still the king. It's still 1-800 of space. If you look at the 1-800, how it's evolved, if you've got the 1-800, people recognize that and say, okay, this company's been around for a long time. If you own paw.com, that means this company's put a lot of money in this domain, and we did, by the way. We also do own paw.club, by the way. And we find club also complements people who have a .com website to provide other services or to promote their social community. In the case of Meowingtons, we launched a daily cartoon, and it's called Milton the Cat Club. And actually, it's funny because Milton's been in isolation now for 64 days, and the cat's going nuts. And not like any of us are, right? But my point is that they use Milton the Cat Club as their comic club. So you can see you don't necessarily have to use your .com for everything. You can also brand some of your projects as well.
People don't know Milton the Cat, but Milton the Cat is one of the biggest downloads on Facebook, isn't it?
Yeah, I think Meowingtons we've been told is the #1 cat product site on the internet. We've also been told that, and I don't know if you heard, Giphy just sold to Facebook, but that Milton the Cat, and I'm not actually technical here on this issue, but they do little icons and things like that, and they've been downloaded billions of times. So right. Milton the Cat has been getting out there, a billion Giphies. I've never used Giphy. Okay, so Hayden probably has. See, now Hayden's going to start laughing at me, right? Like, start laughing at me about the Giphy, and I'll take you on with the Usenet and Telnet, ping, and
yeah. I always get it when it's the ping file, right? The PNG file. It's, hey, what are you talking about, ping file? The ping file. So, but I'm an old guy with a beard. I don't know nothing. But, going back to that cat, it's the last time I talked to you about it, it was 2.2 billion downloads. Talk about getting exposure. And then with Paw, one of the things that people don't realize is you're really not going after Amazon. This is really more of a Shopify play, and you're doing incredibly well with your product line.
Yeah, so let's just talk a little bit. I would talk about the rise of micro brands, and Meowingtons and paw.com are two examples of that. Meowingtons does a daily cartoon. You know how much we make on the daily cartoon? 0. Do you know how much we make on the 2.2 billion download Giphies of Milton? 0. The fact is, we're trying to create a community. We're trying to create a community of people who love cats. at Meowingtons. And Amazon doesn't do that. And I'm just going to point that out. I don't know if you've ever seen an Amazon cartoon, right? And we're a tiny company of a few employees. Obviously, we have manufacturers who do, a lot more employees there, but a few employees. And we're actually putting out this content. We write many how-to articles on how to take care of your cat and how to have your cat live a healthy, long life. We do the same with Paw. These micro brands have the ability to create content and engagement that you can't get with Amazon. And I just want to, circling back to that point, and really emphasizing that, because I think that's the key in the rise of these micro brands. That the key strategy is creating that content and community, and then selling the products that people can trust.
Even just the way you see microbreweries taking on large brewers now, where 20, 30 years ago, you wouldn't have heard of like some of these boutique beers. I think as of 2 years ago, it was around like 30% of the market, up from nothing. So I don't know if it's for the same reasons, where people are just kind of craving that closer connection, or seeing that there's actually like people that care about them behind selling products, or why that trend is actually, or seems to be pervasive.
Yeah, I think what fuels it really is change in consumer behavior.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very easy for consumers to adapt and change to new technologies when it's a continuous innovation. It's very difficult if it's a discontinuous innovation. Now, what do I mean by that? Okay, so if you get a computer and it's got a faster processor and it works faster, that's continuous. But if you change the device itself to access information, like by going to an iPad or using an Alexa to get your information, that's a discontinuous innovation. So that's very hard to make happen. However, there are companies, as we know, and I just gave a couple examples right there, that have been able to make those happen. And I think that, the discontinuous innovation I'm talking about with e-commerce was going to a retail store. People would physically go there, buy the stuff, and then take it back. And then innovative companies like Amazon and Chewy came along and said, okay, well, you can do it this way and differently. And I think it's actually now easier for the micro brands to succeed than it would be 10, 15 years ago when people were stuck in stores. Because you're not saying go from a store to a micro brand online. You're saying go from Amazon to a micro brand online. And that's a lot easier for entrepreneurs, for concepts that they develop, and for adoption rates.
.club has also gone over to China. So setting up in China has been a hassle. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I've been to China about 12 or 13 times. I did not go in the last year, thankfully. I did not bring coronavirus back to North America.
Ground zero.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, I think China is a fascinating place. I think the people in China are amazing. I think their technology in some ways is more superior than the West's. So, traveling on trains, at 300 kilometers an hour, I don't see that in North America. You see a little bit of that in Europe, but I mean, it's everywhere in China, and they're building train after train. They've got a lot of things going on that are very good there. And Club resonates very well globally in almost every language, including in China. And in fact, even though they don't have the word club in their language, there's no direct conversion, they use CLUB. And you see it on every street in China, whether it's a KTV club, which is their karaoke clubs, which I think there are 100,000 plus in China. You see it everywhere. Gym clubs, they use the word club, and club is very popular in China and taking off very well. Now, did we have to work with the government? Yes, it took us 4 years to get approval with the state governments and also the local governments. We had to be approved in every province. And, through, a lot of hard work and effort and connecting and following their regulations, we were actually able to get approval in that country, and we were able to launch. And this is an American company launching in China. It's a very challenging thing. I understand the challenges that most companies go through in order to launch there. And we've seen that especially in the technology space, companies like Facebook and Google, how they've been blocked from China. But .club was able to get in. And I do think that the Chinese government recognizes the value of owning certain and having access to certain things, like domain extensions or domain names. So they want their entrepreneurs to be able to launch companies using the .club TLD, because they think that's going to help them succeed globally as well.
When you start talking about China and talking about the domains, I have soap.club, and I have it over in Japan. So one of the things I learned over there is you better get the translation down. So here's what happened. I launched thinking that it's soap.club, but the translation that I had it meant brothel. So, I think I got more traffic because of it, but
I've been to Japan a number of times too to launch .club. Club's popular in Japan as well. And I can tell you one thing though, is there one country we can all look at when it comes to germs and this whole coronavirus? They don't shake hands, as most of you know, they bow. A lot of them wear masks. Typically in Japan, you would wear a mask if you were sick. But if you were coughing openly on a subway or something like that, people would look down on you. It would be a faux pas. You would not go out in society without a mask on. They've been doing that for 10, 15, I don't know how many years they've been doing that for. Everything in Japan is touchless. I remember flying from Japan to Beijing, from Tokyo to Beijing, and just so amazed by the Dreamliner that I was on, and how when I walked into the this isn't coach, by the way, and walked into the restroom and you would wave your hand and the toilet seat would go down, and everything was automated. You didn't have to touch a thing. And that was on a plane, and you see that all over Tokyo and all over Japan. They really understand this, they're really paranoid of germs. I used to say the whole country's OCD, but the reality is it probably works very well for an environment like the coronavirus. I remember when only, I don't know, a month ago, everybody saying I would never wear a mask. Now, when you go outside, if you don't wear a mask, people look, you look a little strange, and people look like give you the eye. Why is he not wearing a mask? So it's actually become socially awkward not to wear something on your face.
I was talking to my brother the other day. So he has the family has a company over in China, and he says, "Oh yeah, we're manufacturing masks now. I mean, everybody's manufacturing masks." So just new line of business for them.
Yeah, we talk about those shifts, right, Hayden? Yeah. I mean, there's one right there. So, right. Who would have guessed that making masks would be an opportunity? I do know that Meowingtons has come out with, a line of three separate face coverings. They haven't launched it yet. They've been working on it, and they're all custom designed. When you first saw this launch, these masks, everybody's wearing like the medical mask. They look like, we're all surgeons and stuff. And I'm thinking, okay, this isn't going to last. Then people are starting to go cloth-based a little bit now. They're still wearing masks. And I'm saying, well, this isn't going to last. And, people are going to start to adopt. They're going to have summer scarves. You're going to have, like this tube I have right here that I use, and it's so much more comfortable and convenient. And, it doesn't look like I'm going into an operation or something like that, it's just, there we go. And I can rob a bank, it's like, bandanas and they're making matching hair pieces and things, styling. And by the way, that's exactly how it is in Japan as well. It has been like that for many years. And I saw that. But there's an example of a change in our society, Hayden, where some entrepreneurs they can sense, okay, so the wave is we're going to have masks, and they're all medical at the beginning, but then people are going to say, hey, wait a minute here. This is my face. I don't want to, it's who I am. Why do I wear fashion? Why do I wear a shirt that represents me, or jeans? I'm going to wear a mask that represents me. And so Meowingtons decided to launch a line of custom designs, face coverings, some masks and some face shields that, for cat lovers. So if if you love cats and you want it, it represents who you are, you might consider wearing a mask, like a mask or a face shield or a face covering like that, or a summer scarf. If if you're in another business or other people could, you can offer those services or those types of products to other people who have passions in other areas as well. There's just a whole series of opportunities that opens up here when it comes to things like facial coverings. That it's just good. It's just going to unleash a whole new set of opportunities.
We could have a new line of merch, actually, Dad. You gotta have a mask
there we
with
go.
a beard attachment for all the fans out there.
That would be awesome. There we go.
That would be. I could have a beard. I could put it on my mask. It'd be like, looks like a beard, and it's.
Yeah.
They take the face covering off, and that's it.
Yeah, it would solve my problem too.
I want a mask that has hair on the top. Yeah. So Colin, I know that I'm just looking at your shirt, and what the hell is startups? Like, it's got to be something because it's a .club.
So for me, I love startups, and I love, I talk about the micro brands, and you can see I'm involved in a number of startups, and I had the opportunity to build a building in South Florida, Fort Lauderdale, that houses startups. And in fact, we completed construction after 3 years, a week before coronavirus. And it's a building that we tried to emulate sort of a San Francisco-like factory warehouse concept. And what we've done is we brought in a lot of my companies into it, and we're inviting other companies into startups.club. And we're really trying to support startups in the community. I believe that the way we're going to get out of coronavirus, I think the entrepreneurs need to lead. We need to lead we need to start companies. We need to grow our companies. We need to scale our companies, and we need to hire a lot of employees to help us do that. And we need to lead this country out of one of the greatest depressions we've ever seen. Although it's really, I'm going to call it a flash depression, because I believe in it. I believe in America and Canada and what entrepreneurs can do in this country. And I believe that we can get out of this relatively quickly with the right incentives and the right attitudes, and with entrepreneurs stepping up and starting new businesses and getting out there and making things happen.
And the other thing, I was talking to somebody the other day, and they were just doing a ton of work overseas, tons. And yeah, you can get good deals over there, but there are so many people that are out of work in the US right now. Just not getting into the work, or just not being able to have a job. And the job pool is so, like, for us with writers, you know how many writers are out there right now that are just dying for work? And it's not like paying somebody overseas. It's a bit more expensive, but the quality of the work from a U.S. Native speaking person is so much higher. And you can find these people, not just writers, but all walks of life. So I think for somebody starting a new business, this is a perfect opportunity. There's tons of people out there that are really want to work, and they don't want to sit on their butt. They do want to work, and there's that huge opportunity. All we need are the entrepreneurs to get out there to create those jobs.
Absolutely. And, that's why I started startups.club, because I truly believe in helping others build companies. And Fort Lauderdale is actually a great place for that. We're not Silicon Valley. We're not New York. We're not Toronto. We're Fort Lauderdale, but we have a lot of advantages going for us. We have the sun and the surf, and we have the low taxes, and we have an environment that, that encourages business and small businesses, and there's not a lot of regulation down here. So that's why we started startups.club.
So I want to change gears for a second and talk about networking. This whole show came about just talking to people and somebody asking, and oh yeah, I know this guy, and then in the same conversation, oh yeah, I know this guy. Well, it's all about networking, and I know you feel strong about that as well. And can you tell me about your networking experiences? I know that you're involved with different associations, but the importance of it and what that's done and how it's contributed to your life.
Yeah, I think that anyone in life needs to get into clubs, or needs to get into organizations in their professional area and network with others. And in my case, as an entrepreneur, I got involved in 1996 in an organization called YEO, or Young Entrepreneurs Organization, which was later named Entrepreneurs Organization. And there are really two components to it. One is we meet every month, 8 of us, and we share each other's challenges and opportunities. And really, I have 7 other people who are helping me guide my company and helping me build everything I've done. I mean, in the last 20 years, I've taken almost every major issue that I've experienced to my forum, like with a group of people that I meet with on a monthly basis, and they've helped me get through those issues. And in addition, they've also identified opportunities for me, not only, ideas that they've generated, but also people they might know that they've introduced me to who might help invest, help bring in an investor into one of my companies, or, help me with getting a new project or making a new sale. I've had just such great experience working with Entrepreneurs Organization. And a second component to EO is the monthly learning sessions. And I tell you, it's really changed myself in that years ago, I was doing things sort of off the cuff on my own. Eventually, I began to learn best practices, which were taught by the organization. And I even hired a CEO coach, somebody who's helped me for the last 15 years, guide me, on every aspect of running my companies. It's important, when I know it's going to sound a little Hillary-ish. It takes a village, but it really does take a village to build a company. It takes employees, it takes others, it takes, everyone with talent, around you. It takes money from different people. It's a complicated machine. And to build something successful, you really do need the right people. You need the right amount of money. You need a great story, and you need great systems. And if you can combine all 4 of those things together, your odds of succeeding are much improved.
All right, my friend. So one of the things that we try to get across every episode is what makes you tick. And one of the things that we like to, find out is, with anybody who's on the show, if you're a musician, artist, entrepreneur, what's that quote that you live by?
All right. Well, a quote that I live by. Well, there is a famous person, a character in history, who said something. His name was Gandalf. It reminds me a little of you. All we have to decide is what to do with the time that is left to us. And if you remember Steve Jobs in some of his famous talk about how we have little time left, and time is so important. I think that quote's important because all we have to decide is to do with the time that is left to us. And I think that it means a lot, because we need to get out there. We need to make things happen. We can't sit back. We can't relax. We've got to change the world. We got to make things a better place. We got to help others. Many people are in need right now. Many people need help. And I think that quote epitomizes it.
So a lot of entrepreneurs, or a lot of people that are looking at entrepreneurs, they look at them in a different light. People that were lucky. Oh, if I did this, I could have been there too. But I find that that's not always the case. Like, I'm sure that everything that you touched did just not turn into gold. Did you have failures? And if you did, what were they? And how did you get out of them? And at the end of the day, what did you learn?
Yeah, and obviously, it's better to learn some of the stuff through, textbooks and whatnot. But, one of the things that my partners and I in the 90s, I had mentioned earlier, is that we had taken a company public, a small public company. We sold Tucows in 98. So we were flush with cash. Life was good. 28 years old, really enjoying the life. And Internet Direct had begun discussions with a cable company in Canada called Look Communications. Now, a few of you Canadians might remember some of these names. All right, don't come after me for any money after you, but a few of you might remember this. And Look Communications had the wireless license for television, and then after we had merged the companies, we applied for the wireless license for the internet, for fixed internet in Canada. Now you can imagine how much money that would be worth today. And we were actually awarded it by the government. 50% of the license was awarded to our entity. And our stock at the time had gone to over $1 billion. Now understand, when I had sold my company to this, or merged with this cable company, I was in a locked position. My stock was locked up. But being 29 years old at the time and having your stock, your value of your stock go into the 8-9 figures, geez, it was insane, right? It was just the amount of, it was just absolutely insane. It was the .com 90s boom, and it was just crazy. And come middle of March of 2000, Microsoft, a judge had announced that Microsoft would be broken up, and the Nasdaq had fallen from 5,000 to 4,000, and my company decided to pull the offering because let's wait till the market comes back. Well, if anybody followed that time, hey, the Nasdaq went down to 1,300, so it had really fallen. And fast forward 18 months later, the company filed for bankruptcy protection, and the stock that was trading at $19 a share one day was now trading at 6 cents a share. And of course, I was all locked up. And that was very, very hard on me and my family, and more importantly on my employees. All of the employees in my company had options in the company and had a piece of the company, and a number of them were millionaires on paper during this time, and all of them had lost almost everything. And to work 10 years at a business and to go through a process where you exit and you fail on exit and you are the one responsible for that, it was hard. It was something that really, it really affected me, and it affected the people around me. And I can't tell you how much pain it caused me back then. And even now when I think about it, but again, you dust yourself, you pick yourself up, you dust yourself off, and you continue to focus on what you love the most. And I focused at that point, we launched Hostopia because we thought that, okay, dial-up or the internet access side is sort of done. Now let's focus on the hosting side. We lost everything. We lost all the money. We lost all the shares. The employees lost all the money. And then we launched a new company called Hostopia. And then 6 years later, fast forward 6 years later, we took the company public with an S1, but we took it public in the Toronto Stock Exchange. Back then, you could raise smaller amounts of money. We actually raised $30 million. It was a pretty successful IPO. And then 3 years later, we sold the company to Deluxe Checks. And this time, we did not sell the company for a stock trade. We did an all-cash deal. And I think what the lesson that I wanted to share there really was about liquidity or control. And if you spend your whole life, whether it's building a company or your whole career doing something, you don't want to fail on exit. You want to maximize your exit when you leave the company or when you sell your company. And you have to be, I think too many of us focus all of our energy on building something and not enough on that exit plan. And I think that's an important part of the equation. And then we can talk about dogs.
No, I mean, it is something that a lot of entrepreneurs just don't think about. Like, they get in, they rush, they're an entrepreneur. There's a lot on their mind. They multitask and they forget about the most important thing. And from what I understand, I've talked to brokers in the past and been involved with a few business exiting of a few businesses, and where you make most of your money during that lifetime of the business is on exit. That's where the money happens. So you've got to be looking ahead, and if you're not, it takes one or two kicks between the legs, but then you kind of remember how important it is.
Absolutely. And it's liquidity or control.
Yeah.
It's one of the mantras I live by, right? So
Now we can get back to dogs. I am on Facebook, and at first I thought, oh no, one of the dogs had died, and then I started seeing these other posts, and I got really confused. I didn't know what was going on. So why don't you just tell a little bit about what happened? This is an incredible story.
all right. So first of all, I own 3 King Charles Spaniels, and you may have seen them on Facebook. They're quite popular because they're often featured in ads for paw.com. One of them, and we live on our house backs onto a canal in Fort Lauderdale. One of them had actually, I guess he'd gone after a tomato plant or something and tried to grab it and pull it back and fell back in the intracoastal. And I was up in Canada. I had separated from my family during the coronavirus to take care of my mother-in-law, and I was up in Canada, and I got a phone call saying that he'd gone missing over the intracoastal, over the waterway, and it was about 2 hours ago. And I said, well, I told my son to get out there on the boat and just go search for him. So they did a search and rescue, and they could not find him. And at the time I was thinking, there's no way that dog, he's 12 years old, he's diabetic, he just had eye surgery, he can barely see, he cannot hear, he's completely deaf. There's no way that this dog could survive more than a half hour in the water, swimming. And then, so they went out, they looked for him, they could not find him. We posted something on Nextdoor. Later that night, someone had said, oh, they saw a dog swimming in the intracoastal for 20 minutes. And then they mentioned that to their neighbor. Their neighbor had read the Nextdoor posting, and then they told us that they had seen the dog swimming in this canal, quite far away from our house, by the way. And we saw that post the next morning, unfortunately. So it wasn't until 26 hours after the initial, fall into the intracoastal that my son had gone out to that particular canal, and he looked under a dock and he could see the dog still swimming after 26 hours. And he pulled him out, and he was lifeless at the time. He was alive, but could not move, but did drink some water. Imagine a dog didn't drink for 26 hours, didn't eat, didn't sleep. I can know from, my other dogs that in itself, not even mentioning 26 hours of sleeping, but not eating, not drinking, not sleeping for 26 hours. That in itself is a miracle. Throw on that you've been swimming for 26 hours. And I don't know how it's possible, what he found in the middle of the night, a log or something in the river to hold him up, but somehow he survived, and he did have hypothermia. We took him to the vet, and he made a recovery after 2 weeks.
That is an incredible story. I can't even walk to the end of my lawn, and he's completely fine, right?
The Hollywood rights will be selling those to, exactly.
Yeah, we'll get him on our other podcast. It's a dog I know.
A dog I know.
One other thing I really do have to touch on. I've heard a lot, and I know a little bit about your crazy parties. Colin Campbell is known for crazy parties. I don't know if you want to talk about these parties or the boat parade party at Christmas time. If you want to get into it, we can.
We're not going to college, are we? I mean, in college.
Oh, that's a whole different story.
I had two parties. We had the recession keg party when the recession happened, and then 2 years later, it still never ended in Canada, and we had the end of the recession keg party. So we've had some fun parties in college, and I do enjoy getting together with people, and I just, who are like-minded and who I like to have a lot of fun. Life is about always about having fun. And every year we put on a party in Fort Lauderdale for people I know that have families and others, and they come over to my house, and we have, our house is fortunate to be located right at the end of the boat parade. The boat parade is like the Macy's Day Santa Claus parade, and over 1 million people watch it in Fort Lauderdale. And so, it started out just by a few people coming over. And then next year we had about, 30, 40 people. And then the next year we started, adding some things. We started adding themes, stages, bands, and so it's become bigger and bigger and bigger, and now we're actually, we've run out of land, so we had to build over our pool, a whole stage over the pool to handle the more people. And, short of buying the house next door, I think we're going to start running out of room, at the house. But we do like to have a lot of fun. Life is hard work and fun. It's live, work, and play, and part of life. And I love it, and I'm going to keep doing it.
Right. And the theme this year was Gatsby, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was the Roaring '20s, Great Gatsby, and everybody dressed up, and I was amazed at how many people, came fully decked out in their '20s outfits and flappers, and really just really had a time of their life. Maybe it was I don't know. We had the Roaring '20s, and then 3 months later, we had the Flash Depression. It's like,
isn't that something?
What the hell?
Yeah.
That secret sense of yours.
I just made that up, by the way. The Flash Depression. I'm assuming this is going to be like a huge drop and a huge pickup, right? A Flash Depression. But it's amazing how time is repeating. The world's repeating itself over and over again.
So I've known a lot of entrepreneurs, and I know a lot of people that are just given silver spoons, and they get anything they want. And one of the things that I really admire about you is I was visiting you one day. You were working at one of the buildings, and your son Quinn was working. And so, anyways, it turns out that Quinn's working, and he had to buy his vehicle. It was no gimmies. He worked. It was sweat equity. So there's so many people that I know that would have just, here's your car, here's your Corvette, here's your Porsche. And no, he worked for it. He understands money. And, I just applaud you for that.
Yeah, and I think we have to do that. I think every parent has to think about how do they want their children to be successful, and if we over spoil them, we give them too much. I think that can have a more damaging effect on them than having too little. I think if you go one extreme, too little, it doesn't help, versus too much. Like when I grew up, I didn't have money for college. I had to work full time to pay for my college, and that was, I think, a little too extreme in one direction. I want to make certain my children, they have their colleges paid for. At the same time, when it comes to other things like cars and things like that, I think they got to work for it. They got to make it happen. And if we teach them that when they're young, they'll be able to take care of themselves their whole life.
There's one thing I like to ask at the end of every show. We kind of pass the torch over to the guest. And Colin Campbell, do you know a guy that can come on I Know a Guy?
Do I know a guy that can come on I Know a Guy? Well, I'll tell you what, I know a gal. Her name's Lil Roberts, and I invested in one of her companies, and she is killing it. And she runs a company called Zendu, and they are building a great platform to help small businesses manage their accounting very efficiently and at a low cost. And I think she would be great for your show.
That's awesome. We'll reach out, or if you could help us reach out to Lil, and we'll get her on the next or one of these podcasts.
All right. Great. Thanks for having me on, Norm.
Hey, thanks a lot, Colin. It has been a pleasure having you on.
It's been a pleasure to be on I Know This Guy or Gal. It's a great show. I love it. Thanks, Norm, for having me on.
Hey guys and gals, thanks for listening. For more great content, please like, subscribe, and follow I Know This Guy on all social media platforms. I Know This Guy relies on listeners like you. Please visit our Patreon page to find out how you can help.